Hi, I'm Kara Tucker, editor of ORMS Today, and this is the What's Your Story series. Today I'm joined by Sanjay Ahire, the Carolina Trustees Professor in the Darla Moore School of Business and co-director of the Operations and Supply Chain Center at the University of South Carolina. Thank you for joining me today.
Welcome.
Don't forget to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and so you don't miss any of our video content. Okay, Sanjay. We always start by asking our guests your length of Informs membership and how you discovered Informs.
Well, first of all, Kara, thank you so much for inviting me for this episode here. And thanks to Informs for this opportunity. So Informs, it's in my blood.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah. My first conference when I went through my PhD program at the University of Alabama way back in 1989 was Informs. And so I have my link to Informs going back from there.
Yeah.
Now, in between, I kept on switching between the organizations based on the roles that I had at different universities. But I have been in and out of Informs all of this time, and especially over the last 4 or 5 years, I have been the member of Informs.
So 1989, that's even pre-Informs.
Correct.
So you were ORSA or TIMS?
ORSA TIMS.
So were you a member of both or
ORSA?
ORSA? Okay,
Yeah.
and then.
Yeah. I was a student member because I was a PhD student at that time.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, we're so glad to have you and lucky to have you for this long.
Thank you.
You've also done some incredible things in your decades-long career, but let's start with your decision-making process just to pursue the studies and a career in management science after earning your bachelor's degree in chemical engineering. So how did that line up to where you are now?
Right. I fell into it. But let me just describe to you my trajectory. When I was in high school, middle school, it was my dream to be a brain surgeon.
Okay.
When I went into junior college or the 12th grade and I was getting ready to apply to medical schools and engineering schools and so on, at that time I could not even handle cockroaches, let alone human blood. So that was out of question.
Okay.
Now, I strongly believe that there are 3 noble professions in this world. Priests, who actually transform you spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
Doctors, who transform you, your health into a better human being. And teachers or professors who actually transform your intellect and they cause intellectual transformation, moral transformation, ethical transformation for a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
So of those, priest, I don't think I could do that. I'm not religious. Medical doctors, I just told you I could not handle blood. So then the third choice was to get away from medical field, and I happened to apply to this really great school in chemical engineering from Bombay, and I got into it. And so when I got into it, lo and behold, in the second year, I got to know that I was allergic to many chemicals that I was supposed to be working with lifelong if I were to, be a chemical engineer.
Okay.
But you could not back off because it was a very prestigious school, and if you backed off, you would be a failure. So I persisted and I completed the program. I did even work in a petrochemical company, and that actually validated my suspicion that I could not be in the manufacturing production environment in chemical industry.
Okay.
And that is when I said I need to be close to engineering, but not working, in a manufacturing shop floor environment.
Yeah.
And so the next best thing was doing an MBA with a focus in operations and production management.
Okay.
And so that's when I went to a very good school in Bombay. And then from there, I actually transitioned to pursuing my PhD. And I got into University of Alabama in the management science department for a PhD in management science. That's how it took twists and turns. But when I went through the program, when I actually got into my first teaching position, I knew that I had found my calling.
That's great.
That's where I say the third noble profession, being a professor. And, I can safely say over the last 32 years or so, that my belief in the nobility of this profession has been completely validated.
That's great. So that allergy was meant to.
Yeah, I mean, there are
physical?
things.
I'm really curious about this.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's not physical, but I just could not survive that long. Right?
Okay, so you would like.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Well, I'm glad you're physically well.
Right.
You have many professional achievements. If I listed them all, this interview would last an hour, so I'll just name a few here. You founded the University of Dayton's Operations Management Program, as well as co-founded the USC Operations and Supply Chain undergraduate program, which now ranks number 3 in North America, I believe. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
Tell us about what it took to get these programs running successfully and your motivation to do so.
In my life, I have always been swimming against current. When growing up, I actually was in Bombay in lower middle class in a tenement, and in order to go to school during the monsoon, I had to trade waist high water every day for 4 months. So I have kind of learned to fight against the current, ever since then. So coming back to the efforts that I have made at various institutions to build up programs from ground up, I think there are features of our field that actually almost mandate it for us to do some extra work. Operations management or operations research management science, these are not household names. So when students come out of high schools, and if they're analytical bent, if they don't want to get into engineering, what are the things that they think of, their parents think of? Finance or accounting. Being in the operations management, operations research management science profession really meant that I had to make students and parents aware of even what this field is. So that is a fight that we have been, fighting all of these decades. It finally took the pandemic for everyone to realize how important operations, supply chain, and analytics is to making our lives livable, during that 4-year phase of our lives. What my motivation in making all of these efforts was really to tell as many people as I could, be it students, be it their parents, be it company managers. But I can say that company managers and industry knew about the value of what we do, but it was not translated through the universities to the students and the parents. So it all started with my stint at Indiana University South Bend. That is where I was teaching just one course. That the school had one course in operations management, no course in operations research management science. And so what I said was, if it is just one class, I'm going to teach the students everything that they need to know, at least to survive and do something with this domain knowledge and these competencies. And so I introduced my first set of actual application projects in that school for the core class. It was a commuter campus, and people called me crazy for doing that. How can you do that at a satellite or sister campus of IU in a city that does not have a proper manufacturing base, and so on and so forth? But had I not taken up that challenge, I would not have received the first global award that I got from POMS. It was at the hands of Vic Skinner from Harvard that actually really recognized more than 100 projects that I was able to do with my students in all different kinds of sectors at Indiana University South Bend, in South Bend. So that actually got me to University of Dayton opportunity, where I was able to design and develop this entire major in operations management with an analytical bent. I always have integrated operations research management science, even if I have not said that explicitly because of the titles of the programs, because of the nature of the schools. But at the University of Dayton, I was able to design this from ground up, and I was actually able to recruit some of the top managers, even at the C-suite level, from manufacturing firms, GM, GE, and other service organizations, hospitals in the area. It was a great program that actually, really took that effort that I had made in one single class to a programmatic level. At that stage, I've always also believed that only classroom teaching is not it. Because of the nature of our field, we actually need to be there with our students from end to end, the whole 9 yards, to make them successful. I actually developed comprehensive multimedia presentation at that time by having top managers from manufacturing and service organizations, they interviewed, and then made 1,000 copies of those and sent it around to high schools, to different business schools, to companies, and so on. So what happened was, University of South Carolina, Dr. Malhotra, who was the chair of the department at that time, he had been thinking about starting a program in parallel, and he got to know about my work. In fact, USC was using my CD, to introduce the field of operations research and operations management to the students, even before I went there. So he wanted to do this, and he had the vision, and so we talked, and he invited me to come and join the school, and this was our vision. We wanted to actually develop a program in Columbia, South Carolina, that would rival or perhaps exceed the quality of the other major programs that were existing at that time at Ivy League schools and Big Ten schools in big metropolis. And again, it was like, swimming against the current because nobody had done it. People called us crazy, and we said, fine, we will prove you wrong. So we went out and actually talked to the industry about what kinds of competencies they were looking for, and then designed the program, co-designed the program. He had already put some places, blocks in place. And then he had convened the Operations and Supply Chain Center before I joined. But then I actually expanded it, substantially, and got a lot of, leading companies to join the center.
Yeah.
And from there, we did, things that actually are not only about teaching, the best, strategies and techniques, but also co-curricular efforts. Over the last 16 years, I have been holding this Operation and Supply Chain Career Workshop for my students every semester, almost 34 editions now,
wow.
with the intention of preparing them not just to make good grades, but to get great jobs.
Oh, yeah.
And so the rest is history.
And that's really incredible that you did that. You also became the first tenured university professor to be certified as a Six Sigma Master Black Belt by the American Society for Quality. And you lead a certification initiative to graduate students with this same certification. So first, explain what Lean Six Sigma is and why it's beneficial for analytics professionals.
I was doing the research. I have always had one foot in academics or research and one foot in the industry.
Yeah.
So I was working a lot with the industry professionals, and that's where I said, I actually get to know what the real problems are.
Yeah.
And then work back from there into my research, but also first and foremost help the organizations improve their performance. And then that leads to research opportunities that you can actually expand on. When I actually was working on my research as well as working with the industry on various approaches to improving quality and operations, performance, Lean Six Sigma as a framework was what I settled on, because it's one of the most logical frameworks to take a process in its current state and improve it for real.
Okay.
Through a focused application of different techniques, but also doing it systematically through a roadmap of define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And in fact, you can use the same framework to design new processes. It's called DMADV, define, measure, analyze, design, and verify. So what this does is actually helps, whether it is an individual manager or an organization, or in our case, our project teams, it helps to start with the actual business problem and understand the underlying business process, and then evaluate, assess what it will take to improve that process. And along the way, utilize data and analytics in a focused manner that will actually get you from the current state of the process to an improved future state of the process. It's a very systematic approach, if you will. And it's very easy to understand also once you get into it. In today's world, when we have overabundance of data, and in fact, a lot of noise, now, if you start with the data instead of the underlying process and the problem that you want to solve, it's very easy to get into data dredging. I'm very much against that. So anytime I want to solve a problem for an organization through capstone projects or professional consulting or research, I always start with the underlying process.
Yeah.
American Society for Quality, which is the mother organization of all quality organizations in the world, started this certification of the highest level of competency in this arena. It's the Six Sigma Master Black Belt. I actually went through all the different levels of certification and become the first tenured professor to be certified as Six Sigma Master Black Belt in 2012. At that time, there were fewer than 50, and the rest were industry managers.
Right.
So very, very proud of that. But the reason why I did that was because we had the program that we were building up, and we actually have integrated this very unique Sonoco USC Lean Six Sigma Green Belt initiative into our program by working with Sonoco Products Company, which is a Fortune 500 company in South Carolina. When students get certified with that certificate, I did not want to sign that certificate along with the Lean Six Sigma champion of Sonoco as a regular, ordinary university professor.
Yeah.
I really wanted it to have a professional credibility, and that's the reason why I went through it. Now, our students have been the ultimate beneficiary of that.
Right.
I have been told by my students and the employers of the value and the validity that certificate brings to their initial job.
Yeah.
In fact, they actually get premium compensations based on that certification. Because these competencies are not expected of them.
Right.
And it's not just a starting compensation. They actually are able to outperform their peers from much better programs in the first year, second year, third year, and throughout their career. They're able to make changes, switches in their career from industry to industry. They're able to rise in their career at a much faster clip, and they have really taken the bull by the horn, if you will, and outperformed their competition. So it's all in the interest of the students that I do any and all of the things.
Yeah. How many levels are there? You said there's several levels.
Yes. So green belt, black belt, and master black belt.
Okay.
That's the that's the highest competency.
And how long did it take you to get to the
top? 5 years.
5 years?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a long process.
Yeah.
That's not,
yeah. And in fact, the master black belt certification exam was 6 hours long.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that. In terms of Inform's achievements, you have received the 2018 prize for the teaching of ORMS practice, which after all you've told me, I can see why you won that award. You were a Wagner Prize finalist in 2005, and after 2 more finalist years, you led the team to win the 2024 UPS Smith Prize for the University of South Carolina. What have these awards meant to you personally and professionally?
I've always believed in swimming against the current and defying the conventional wisdom. And it really actually stems from my very strong belief in terms of what constitutes value that is provided by professors to their students. And so I follow what I call the TRS model.
Okay.
Teaching, research, and service model.
Did you make that up, or is that a real model?
No, I just made that up. It might exist as a model, but if not, then now it exists.
Now it's a thing.
But the reason why I say that is it is not teaching plus research plus service. So I don't consider these 3 dimensions of a professional's responsibility to be 3 different buckets.
Okay.
And unfortunately, in our field, because of the institutional incentives and professional incentives and recognitions, professors actually have to compartmentalize their efforts along these 3 dimensions. What I found is a way to triangulate all of these 3 things through providing students not just strategies, concepts, and techniques of improving things, improving operations, improving supply chains, using analytics to make smarter decisions. All of these competencies, I have found a way to help students actually apply these to real life problems and real life organizations through all of these experiential initiatives that I have talked about. So when I have finally gotten the recognition for the efforts on the teaching and practice side, while I've always been also working on the research side, it's a validation of this approach that you can actually find synergies between these 3 seemingly disparate or different dimensions of your responsibility. I hope that with what the recognitions have been, whether it is the Inform's Prize for Teaching of ORMS practice or the award that we won right now after 2 attempts. The 3rd attempt was a charm. And the UPS prize really is the apex of the competency of the entire group to provide world-class education in ORMS and analytics practice to students. These recognitions, I hope, will provide impetus and motivation to at least some in our profession to follow this model.
Yeah.
I think we need to have a portfolio approach in our disciplines. Some folks who are really great at research should do research, but other folks actually should do everything because the students and their parents pay for our jobs. Our profession will not exist as college or university professors without students.
True.
And so you have to recognize who the primary stakeholder is. And there are different ways we contribute to the advancement of the students. Research does contribute in the long run. It is the transformation that you do of the students while they are with you in the classroom and beyond that really counts in terms of the immediate value proposition of the field. I hope that on this actually really changes some moves the needle on what universities and our profession as a whole consider to be valuable and recognizable contributions of university professors. Now, looking at it from a personal angle, it is a very tough model to follow. And I can talk about my own personal sacrifices and the sacrifices of my family, that actually are inherent in executing such a model. Because you're really doing a job of probably a 1.5% when you are working on stuff like this. Yeah, even now, my students or the client managers that I work with will get response to their emails in the middle of the night from me.
Right.
And just about a week ago, I actually did not sleep an entire night because I had to prepare for a long mentoring session of my students. We are working on a very, very important project for South Carolina Department of Education, where we are optimizing their bus transportation strategies for more than 30,000 students in South Carolina. And when you are working on projects and initiatives like that, I think that consumes you. When I talk about me having spent literally tens of thousands of hours with thousands of students over the last 16 years, none of that would be possible without Sneha, who is my, love of a life, a lifelong partner, and wife, for the last many decades. Her personal and professional sacrifices are what has enabled me to focus my energy on delivering this value to my students, to the program, to the school, and to the profession. Half of this would not have been possible if I did not have Sneha along my side.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So there's a lot of sacrifice in there, and when I say this model is tough to follow, it is.
Yeah.
It is, but it is worthwhile. It is every ounce worth it.
Yeah.
If I were to restart my career all over again,
do it.
I would not change a thing about it.
You can tell. Well, thank her for us too.
Yeah.
What is your top piece of advice for students and young professionals today?
So, Kara, I'm honored to be answering that question. When I look at the journey of past 32 years of my life, I am actually looking back at myself 32 years ago. And so I'm going to give the advice to myself 32 years ago, and in the process, help the youngsters in our profession. So it's a general advice, but it really applies well to our profession or any other profession. I think it's very important to find your passion. And once you have found your passion, just go and get it. Work towards it like there is no tomorrow. And don't worry if the passion that you have or the goals you have set up are against the conventional wisdom. So do not worry about that. You have to trailblaze your own path. And while you're doing that, just remember that you have to knock on the doors. Don't close the doors by yourself. If you don't knock on that door, there's no possibility that door will open. When you knock on the door, there's some possibility that there will be cracked open, right? Or the glass ceilings will crack open. That's what I would actually advise our youngsters to believe in themselves and actually do it. The other thing is, you actually want to have stretch goals and push the envelope to what is possible with your capabilities and whether you can make a difference in the world. Think about others. In this case, if you're a professor, think about students, who are laying their entire faith of their career and their life in your hands. So do the best you can. I always look at my students and I see my own kids in them. Okay, when you have that kind of a mindset, I think everything falls in place, right? If I had, just not even challenge myself to do half of the things I have done, we would not be talking here, right? So I would say that for the youngsters, I think we are in a world where, especially for this generation of operations research and analytics professionals, we have it a little bit easier than what we had, in the past. There's a lot of data available. There's a lot of interest in our field. Take the opportunity and run with it. Yeah.
That's good advice for any field, like you said. Let's talk a little bit about your research and how it helps to support smarter decisions for a better world.
My research interest is in evaluating, the efficacy of various operations, improvement strategies and techniques in different contexts, what works and what doesn't in various contexts. And also not just stop at that by looking at what others have done, but actually go out and do it for our industry and organizations. And over the course of last 3 decades, I have worked on more than 250 of these applied research projects, consulting projects through the centers at a professional level through consulting. And that really gives you a very different satisfaction of actually contributing to the challenges that organizations face and are facing here and now, instead of a futuristic research that might become useful someday down the road.
Right.
Though that is also really important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But my focus is on here and now, right? And the TRS model that I discussed really helps me do that, by being efficient about using my time between teaching, research, and practice or service. If you look at my 10 articles that have been published in Interfaces IJAA, that really tells you a story. Most of them are based on the actual problems for industry and organizations that have solved. Then use those to actually towards my research, applied research, but also in my teaching and the projects that I do with the students.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great efficient optimization of your efforts, to get multiple outcomes from it. Right. Yeah. So I would say that really has helped. And but I would say the most important contributions that I get, the most satisfaction from is the contribution to changing the trajectory of organizations. Whether it is big Fortune 500 companies that I've worked with, like UPS and Walmart and Boeing and Johnson and Johnson, but also hospitals where I have worked on projects that have to do with improving clinical quality of patient care, the efficiencies and cycle times for patients, as well as in social mission nonprofits where I've worked with food banks and homeless shelters and Medical University of South Carolina, for example. Some of the projects that I've done, have really had an impact on the real capabilities, operations and supply chain capabilities of these social mission nonprofits that otherwise don't have the wherewithal to do their work, very important work. And I'll give you an example. Harvest of Food Bank, we executed a series of projects there on optimizing the statewide retail donations pickup logistics for Harvest of Food Bank from more than 500 retailers and distributing those to hungry residents of South Carolina. The long and short of that is they actually have now the capability to feed 11 million more meals per year to hungry residents of South Carolina. Erin Rowe, who is the CEO of Harvest of Food Bank, actually attended the UPS finalist presentation in Orlando and provided testimonial about this.
Wow, that's great.
So when you actually are looking at stuff like that, or it is prioritizing cancer trials at MUSC, when you're really talking about making a difference in lives of people beyond saving millions of dollars for billion-dollar companies, right? So I think my research, I would say, has had immediate impact.
Yeah. If we were sitting here a year from now celebrating what a great year it's been, what would we be celebrating?
So let's make it 1.5 years.
Okay,
because
sure. 18 months.
In June of 2026, I really dream of us celebrating #1 ranking for the Operations and Supply Chain program in Gartner. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Because we're up against some schools that have tremendous endowments and, but yeah.
And it's #3 currently.
We are #3 right now, but we will try our best.
You trying to move to 2, or are you just going straight to #1?
I mean, why not shoot?
There
at the top. Yeah.
So great.
I have always been that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you dream big, then you actually end up somewhere between here and that, ultimate panacea.
Yeah.
But if you dream low, you get lower than that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll check in with you in 18 months and see what happens. If you could have dinner with one famous person from history, who would it be and why?
If I were to go back in history, I would like to go back in my personal history.
Okay.
And so the most important person to me would be my father, my dad. I would really like to, have a dinner with him here in this country. He never got to come to this country. But I remember him as my role model, a very poor boy from village, that who did not have footwear to go to school, walked to school 5 kilometers one way, would study in, not in, electricity, but under the oil lamps. Came to Bombay, for higher education and job, who would hide under his roommate's bed because he did not have money to pay, to the landlord, who actually would walk miles through tall grasses and farms to get to the railway station to go to downtown Bombay, waking up early in the morning at 4 o'clock and going for morning college and then over to the work, who always worked very, very hard until the very end of his career. I looked at him and I said, if I could do that, I might be successful.
Yeah.
And that's the role model I have followed. And there are things in life that you miss the most, and which is that he never got to come here.
Yeah.
My mom came and she also worked equally hard, and until her knees gave in. But I would like to, have dinner with my dad. He's the most important person that is not alive in my life.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Finally, what's one thing that you would like to check off your bucket list, or maybe you recently have?
How much time do we have?
Oh gosh. I said one thing.
I know. Such a long list of things to do on my bucket list because I've been so busy in my career. The first and foremost thing that I would like to do is to revisit Taj Mahal.
Okay.
With Sneha, my wife. We were there about 40 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Immediately after our marriage. So I would like to revisit and relive those moments.
Yeah.
The second thing is I would like to go on a road trip across this great country.
Okay.
And see it from up close personal.
Yeah.
Though we fly all the time to conferences. Right. The third thing I would like to do is to actually retrace my journey through this great adopted homeland of mine, all the way back from 1988 to now. So go back and visit each and every apartment that we have lived in, home that we have lived in, the schools that my kids have gone to, and the schools that I have attended, for either my PhD education or the jobs that I have had. I would like to retrace my journey with my wife.
That's really nice.
Yeah, and I think that's really I think important. The final item on my bucket list will be that I would like to write a memoir of my life's experiences of always swimming against the current.
Okay.
And trying to do the things that others think would not be possible.
Okay.
For me.
That's lovely. Just transcribe this interview and you have a starting point for your memoir. How about that? Got a lot of good stuff in here.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Thank you again. I really appreciate it.
I can go on and on.
I know. I can tell.
I know.
Appreciate it.
But
Thank you so much.